Hey, what's up guys? Welcome to my channel, and today in this video we are going to look at an interesting aspect on how we can deploy our Laravel application on AWS as a Lambda function. Now before we dive into how to do serverless deployment of our Laravel application, let's quickly understand when we want to do a serverless deployment. If you have any task which is independent in nature and the scale is something that you are not very sure about, then serverless does come as a great option. In serverless, you don't need to manage your servers. What you are shipping is only a function, and you are only responsible for the functionality of the function, and everything else, right from the management of server to the OS patching and everything, is something that your cloud hosting provider is going to take care of. And in our case, it is AWS. Now, to host a Laravel application on AWS as a Lambda function, there are certain things that we need to understand. There is a framework, or I would say a library called Serverless. This is what I'm talking about. It's a framework, that's what they call it, which is allowing us to basically build the entire Laravel application, and it also gives us the runtime for us to host that function or that Laravel application on our AWS Lambda. Now, this is a node package which you need to have on your machine. I will show you you need to basically install it globally, or maybe it has the documentation in Bref as well. But first of all, understand that this is the underlying technology, the serverless framework. The next thing comes is Bref. Bref, or rather Brief, is basically a composer package which runs on top of serverless, and it allows us to deploy the PHP function, or rather the PHP application, on Lambda. Now it does work with other frameworks like let's see, yeah, it works with Symfony, but I have only tried Laravel, so I don't have a clear understanding how other frameworks would work with it. But yes, they do say that a lot of PHP applications can run. Okay, now the internals. Let's get started. How do we set things up? As I said, for this entire setup to work and for you to deploy a serverless function on AWS Lambda, you will need serverless. So you need to install npm install -g serverless, and yes, do install the third version, because what I have seen is the fourth version has a lot of licensing issues. You need a key or something like that, which was really not working. And I think, yeah, they have mentioned that Brief is compatible with Serverless Framework v3 and v4. However, documentation is written for v3 as v4 switches to a proprietary license, right? Right. So we are focusing on serverless @3. Now I already have this. Okay, so I get this kind of a option selector, which means serverless is working for me. And then what also you need to do is the serverless binary is going to it relies on a YML file, and based on that it will create a CloudFormation stack. It creates the CloudFormation template, and then that template is being executed to build an entire stack. And what that means is this entire CloudFormation has definitions about every resource that is required for the Laravel application to run as a Lambda function. We will need an S3 bucket, because the entire code is first packaged and uploaded to S3, and then a Lambda function is created which takes that code base inside the S3 bucket, and that's how it creates itself. Then there are other things like it will create your IAM roles and policies and stuff like that. So all of that is done through the CloudFormation. But then for this entire thing to work, you need an AWS key and a secret. So that is what you need to do through this configuration. Okay, what it will result in is you will get a folder inside your root volume called .aws, and if I go inside that, you will see I have a file called credentials. Now, obviously, I can't show this file. It has my AWS key and secret. When you execute this command, okay, you will get that file. It will automatically create that, and it will have 3 lines of code, 3 lines basically. It will say default, and then your AWS key ID and your AWS secret key. Okay. All right. Now, with all of these things taken care of, why don't we start with a clean slate of Laravel application? So I'll create a composer, create Laravel serverless. Okay, so it will create a folder called serverless and it will install a Laravel application. Let me open that up in my VS Code. Now I know what are the steps, but still, let's go through the documentation. So I will click get started, and we definitely need the composer package. So we are installing Bref/Bref and Bref Laravel bridge. So these are the two things that we will need. Let me install that. All right, so I have installed the required packages, and the next thing that you need to do is run this vendor publish tag serverless config. What it does, it creates this serverless YML file. So let me go inside VS Code and look at this serverless YML file. So this is my service name. What I will do is say serverless tutorial, just so that we know what things are getting created with this. Okay, some indentation. The provider name is AWS, which is obvious. I mean, at some point, maybe they want to handle Azure and GCP. I don't know. But for now, we only have AWS. Okay. Now, this is important. The region where you want this Lambda function to be hosted. And do note that you want to ensure that this is in line with any of the other resources that you have, because I will show you one architecture which we are using in one of our clients project. So this is our Lambda function. Okay, we have multiple webhooks coming to the Lambda function, and those Lambda functions, what they would do is they will take that data and then they will just put it in a queue. So the advantage is that even if I have like literally thousands and thousands of concurrent users, which will result in multiple webhooks, those webhooks will come just in an SQS queue, and it's an infinite queue. Okay, and then I have a separate EC2 instance, which is my analytics server. It has an RDS in with it. So what happens is this analytics server will run on its own pace to consume these queued jobs, which basically means even I have an influx of a lot of jobs which are being pushed into the SQS, my analytics server will continue to run at a constant pace, which means it is easy for us to manage the infrastructure. Okay, right. So this is how, and obviously because the Lambda functions are in a same region with the SQS, and then the EC2 instance is on that same region, and the RDS is also on the same region, they are practically able to communicate because of this thing. So region is important. Okay, then these are your stages. You can have production, staging, and stuff like that. Quite a few things are something which you can right now ignore. Don't get too overwhelmed with that. Now this is the function where it says that the web will run through this handler. This is the slash public slash index.php. This is what will get executed, and I will change my runtime to PHP 8.3 FPM. Okay, you have from 8.1 to 8.3 with AWS Lambda, and I will remove the artisan console thing. Okay, now for the Lambda to work, we can't create log files there. What we will need to do is rely on CloudWatch. So our log file will be, I'll just comment it out and keep this as std, or rather syslog. Okay, I think it is mentioned in the documentation as standard STDR. I have read there somewhere. Hold on. Pa, pa, pa. Yes, STDERR. This is also possible, but what I am doing here is I am literally taking the entire system log and pushing it to the CloudWatch. Okay, and the reason to do this is inside Lambda functions, you don't get a storage folder per se. Okay, and so what you get is a slash temp. But we do want to look at the logs in some way so that if the function is breaking or we are trying to log something, we should be able to see that. So that's why what we do is we rely on the AWS CloudWatch service. Okay, that is done. And then what next? We also have a problem of sessions because we can't create those files, or rather, I am not going to use the database driver for session, so I will use that. So what will happen is we have access to a slash temp folder inside the Lambda function, so we will utilize that for our session, because anyways these are stateless and you don't typically work with session based things inside Lambda function. Otherwise you'll have to use the database driver, so you need to connect to the RDS. Okay, all right, what next? I think we are done. I'll go inside my web.php and I'll have a logger. And maybe we will do a dump as well. Okay, so this is what we have. Why don't we now go ahead and do serverless deploy? Okay, that's about it. That's all that it takes to push things. So now I will go into my AWS account and let's go to S3. Let me look at it says environment blah blah blah. Okay, I think I know what the problem is. I must have deactivated my key. Yes, this key is inactive, so I'll just activate this key, and that means now that the key and the secret is available. Go over here, try once more. Packaging, creating CloudFront stack. Okay, so yes, now I think it should work. CloudFront, no, Cloud, what was that? Cloud Formation, my bad. There are so many services in AWS that many times I just get confused. Okay, this is something which I had created earlier. I can get rid of this. So deleting the stack will delete all stack resources. Resources will be deleted according to their deleting policies. Okay, I'll skip this for now. I'll do that later. And the stack is created and it will create quite a few things inside the resources. So the bucket policy, all these things are done. Now it is updating CloudFormation stack. Okay, this can take some time. Typically for me it takes from about 1 to 2 minutes when I'm doing a normal deployment, and the first run can take 3 to 4 or even 5 minutes, depends. Okay. There's something called Git sync. Interesting. With Git sync, you can manage your CloudFormation stacks from a Git repository to provision resources with your Git provider. Okay. Connect. IAM role. Okay. Maybe I need to be inside the AWS repositories. Obviously, they are going to stick with their own resources and own services. So, yeah. All right. So that's good news. We have successfully deployed our Laravel application as a Lambda function. Before we go into all those things, let's first run that and see if things are working. Awesome. So you can see my dump is here. Let me show you the web.php, right? So dump is coming up and the welcome page is getting loaded. And because we have logged, if I go to CloudWatch, could have done the logs as well. Log groups. Okay, these things are still pending from my previous trial, but this is what I'm interested in, serverless tutorial. And so this is my log group, and inside the log group I have my log stream. Inside this I see my log file, and am I not able to see what just happened? I think there is some configuration problem because I should have seen the log. Some way I think my logging configuration is not working. Let me see which one I can use. Log stack. Okay. Let me just quickly check. Am I doing this wrong? Log stack should be syslog. Maybe. So I'll deploy this once more. Before that, I will do php artisan config clear and then yes, serverless deploy. Let's wait for this to be ready. Now, while this is happening, why don't we do one more thing? I'll go into SQS because I also want to show you how we can put things inside a queue. This one I can delete. I'll create a new queue. Server. Okay, and rest everything I can keep as is. Just need to ensure that my region is correct. Okay, now let's see. Have I deployed this? Yes, it is there. So now let's go back to CloudWatch, logs, and log groups, web. Let me refresh once more. Twice. And now this is the latest one. And yes, now I can see my log inside the log file. My spelling of inside is wrong. Okay, fair enough. So this is how we are able to run the Laravel application on a Lambda function, and we are able to dump, we are able to do logs and stuff. Now we have created an SQS thingy. We have a queue, and what I would want to do is basically allow the Lambda function to push jobs inside the queue. Okay. Now for that, we don't need to create an IAM thing and configure SQS and stuff. Obviously, the only thing is I will take this, the URL, go inside my env, and there are two configurations. One is I need to say that my queue connection is SQS, and this particular thing will be, let me go into Bref, queues, SQS queue. Okay. Now there's a way where you can create a queue with the Lambda function, but what I saw is that the queue is then being processed by the Lambda function itself. You can do that, but my use case was a bit different because I had an EC2 instance which is already running. Okay, I don't want the Lambda to process the queue. So that's the basic difference. Okay, right. So what I have done is I'm saying that my queue connection is going to be SQS, and my SQS queue will run on this. I'm just wondering, I would also need the composer package. I think that will be required, otherwise it won't work. Should we try without that? Um, okay, let's deploy once and see. I'll create a job, PHP artisan make job, and I'll say process, yeah, podcast, whatever. VS Code, process, podcast. Inside the handler, again, a simple log, not inflate info. I was inside the job. And we need to dispatch it. So over here, process, podcast, dispatch, done. All right, let's deploy. I have a feeling it might break, but no harm in experimenting. So if the queue doesn't work, then basically we need to just install the SQS thing. But even before that, there's one thing which we have to do. The Lambda function will need some way to communicate with the SQS. It doesn't have the permission by default. Now we will have few roles over here. You can see this is the 30 dev US thing. I'm not deleting it. I'm planning to delete the stack, and that should take care of these things. But this is the role which we are using. And if you are very much concerned or you're not able to figure out which role is being used, I think there is one more way which you can use. Go over here into the Lambda function, okay? And where is it? Hold on. Role name, right. We click over here, we come to this thing, and we can see it has a policy called Serverless Tutorial Dev Lambda. We add a new inline policy. We choose a service, SQS. We allow certain functions, or rather access. So we need access to get queue attributes, receive message, maybe not list queues, I think. Send, delete. Right. I think that's about it. Now, in terms of the resource, I want a very specific resource which I can find if I go inside my SQS again. There will be an ARN for that resource. Okay. I copy that, add ARNs, and that's it. So I create this new policy. Policy name is Serverless Tutorial SQS policy. Done. This is created. In the meantime, my deployment is complete. So I'll go over here and refresh. Let's look at our CloudWatch logs. I should keep this open. No problem over here. And if I go to my SQS queue now, I can see one message available. Perfect. So this means the queue is working. The only thing is 1, 2, 3, 4. I have refreshed the page 4 times. Now if I refresh, I can see 5 messages are in queue. And as I said, the architecture that I am looking at is that the Lambda function is taking everything which is coming to it, and it is just pushing it to the queue. This infinite queue of SQS. Now there is a consumer which will listen to this queue and it will be able to process them. So what we will do is, because the code base is literally the same, we can use the same application to process our queue. And especially because the job is also over here. This is my local instance, right? This is my MacBook where I am running this Laravel application, and this is Lambda function. So they are not really related as such, but because of this thing, right, I should be able to process the queue. So let's see if that is the case. Before that, because it has a log, syslog, and what was the initial value? Single, okay. So I'll do single. Now this is the only reason we are making this change. I typically would not need to do this because I'll have a separate EC2 which has an env. But yeah, right now I had that problem. Logs. Okay, I don't have anything else. PHP artisan queue listen. Perfect. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And here's my log file. So I was inside the job, should be coming 5 times. Yep. So that's pretty much what we can do with this serverless approach of Bref that we used. We are able to deploy a Lambda function, a Laravel application as a Lambda function. We are able to access the URL, do certain stuff, and we are also, the most important thing is we are able to push things to an SQS queue, and with that we are able to ensure that the webhooks are any kind of URL where you have the requirement to be very much available. You can do that, push that job quickly into a queue, and then you can at your own convenience use your worker to consume those jobs from SQS and process them. So that's the real benefit of using Laravel application as a Lambda function. So that's about it. That's what I wanted to cover. Hope you like this video and you understand the benefits of running Laravel as Lambda functions. If you have any questions or feedbacks, please comment below and I will try my best to answer all of them. Yeah, if you like this video, then do click on the thumbs up icon and don't forget to subscribe to my channel.